In today's episode of Instructional Design from the Ground Up, we're going to talk about NOP analysis. And you may or may not have heard of NOP analysis because it's really not out there as much as it ought to be, I don't think, but it's something that might be useful for you, especially working with clients. So NOP, what's NOP?
What is NOP?
What is NOP? Need, objectives, and population. And when I first came up with this, I had to sit on it for a while because I wasn't sure it was that important or that it would serve as a tool at the level I would hope it would. But what I found is, as I was writing a chapter in one of my books on analysis, it seemed like I went instantly to very detailed and very higher level instructional design stuff that I was expecting from people that, you ought to be able to do this, 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 and this. And I was thinking, if we look at the new gen designers, which are everybody that doesn't do instructional design for a living, essentially, how are they going to do analysis that's realistic? How can they do it in a shorter amount of time but get the information they need? So I came up with NOP. And the idea is that you can use it with clients, you can use it in groups, you can use it if you're a one-person shop. And for the professional designer, this is step one. This is where you start. For other designers, especially new gens, this might be all you do. But even if you do this, you're going to find that your design work is going to go better. You're going to get a better product, and you're going to perhaps think about things that you wouldn't normally think about. So if you're designing courses on the back of a napkin, think about NOP analysis. And let's see where we go with this. So Dennise, I know that you think about this. I know that you've used it. And what is your experience with it? What do you think of it?
Well, with NOP analysis, one of the things that when I think about the needs analysis, now I'm kind of like a one-person shop in a way, my LLC, my consulting company, you are a consultant with me, but I pretty much am out there running these things, working these things on my own. So I'm kind of like a one-man person when it comes to certain things. And it's really important for me to be able to get that NOP analysis, that needs, the objectives of population. I need to get that done in a way that is quick because the clients they're not budgeting that stuff in to their budget for me to do a deep analysis, like a needs analysis, a training analysis.
Nobody pays for analysis.
World, but it doesn't happen in my world like that. So the NOP analysis is a quick and dirty, I like to think of it that way to get my brain around what an organization needs so that I can design something appropriately for them.
Well, let's go through the NOP, and we'll do it here in a fairly quick fashion so we don't run it into the ground. But the three things are important. And if you just do these three things and feel comfortable with the data and information that you get, then maybe that will help you some very basic things that you need to do designing a course. So need. If you can't determine why you're doing something, then you've got a serious problem. And I've seen a lot of courses where no one thought about why are we doing this. It was more like, I've been given this assignment, or they've asked me to do this. And there are times when organizations will ask for things, but they never really tell you why. And if you quiz them and ask them, why are you doing this? Just tell me why this is important to you, why you want to invest in this. Tell me what the purpose of this course is, or this series of courses. And you're going to be surprised sometimes at the answers you get. And if you can't determine the need, you can never satisfy it. And as a consultant, I always ask clients, when are you going to be happy? What's going to make you happy? And part of that is knowing what the need is from their perspective. If you don't know what it is, you're never going to satisfy the need. You might get lucky, you might get in the ballpark, but good designers, especially new gens, if you're just going to get these nuggets of information, find out what the need is and make sure you know what the need is. So the second thing on objectives, these can even be informal objectives. Sometimes they're even goals at this level. Because what you want to do is just determine what do you want your population to leave with. What are the organizational goals? What do they expect out of this? What are you going to be able to observe and measure in your learning population so that you know specifically how to design this course? As they leave that room or they sign off on that computer, What are they going to be able to do that they couldn't do before? What are they going to be able to show you for mastery? Seems like a small thing, but you'd be surprised at the conversations that you will have with sponsors and clients and boards and anyone else that's responsible for their side of this process. And you as a designer sitting there kind of in a vacuum, you might be surprised again, not only on need, but on what their expectations are for delivery and what that user is going to be able to do. So there we have the N and the O and the population. I mean, how many times do people do population analysis? Not 5% maybe. Even professional designers sometimes get caught in this trap, but they just don't have the time or the resources. So they do the best they can based on the information they gather informally. But population is the things that you really want to be concerned about, from my experience. Our first is you want to know educational level. You want to know what prerequisites are going to be required for the course. So can your population meet those prerequisites? And the third thing is language. Do you have language issues? And just don't say they should be fluent in this language or that language. You know, figure out what that means. Should they be able to do it at the 6th grade level or the 8th grade level? Should they be able to write? Should be able to do math? You know, depending on your content. Just make sure that you know what your population is capable of. And that's NOP. You can do this very quickly. Sometimes you can do it in half an hour. You can do it over lunch with folks. Just sit there and informally gather information. But what I suggest to new gens is just make this part of your routine. Just automatically do a NOP. You're going to feel so much better about what happens after that. And then you can look and reflect and say, okay, well, I got that pretty close. You know, just taking that little bit of time, got to be much closer to a better product.
Would you consider then NOP analysis to be, like you had described it, informal? Is that the biggest benefit of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I find in my own experience that it is informal. I mean, if I'm on a project and there's an analysis component of it and it's being funded, that's a different story. And as I've said before, I spent as long as 2 years on just analysis. Did a major project for the Department of Labor, 2 years on analysis. I mean, it wasn't the only thing I was doing, but it ran for 2 years. And yes, we got the information we needed, and that's a different scenario. But I would say most of the time I do a NOP and then head into formal objectives to make sure that I capture what the end user needs to be able to do.
Organizations often say, we need training, we need training, we need training. And as we know, 20% of problems are solved through training, 80% are not training problems. And so this NOP analysis.
That's the first thing.
Right.
As a designer, this is why you need to do NOP, just to determine the need. And you may find, many cases, in fact, you're going to ruin your reputation if you try to put together courses to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Some people do it just because they need the work. That's fine. But I mean, I can give you a perfect case study. I'm going to do it real quickly because we don't want this to drag out too long. But I had a large statewide organization. I'm not going to say which state, 36,000 employees. I was called in because there were issues with communications and trying to get people to work together and whatever. So I did focus groups, I did surveys, I did interviews. So I was able to look at it from the 3 different perspectives. And it wasn't a NOP analysis, but we knew what was going on when we got there. I mean, I could have stopped at the NOP, but okay, we need to document this. So it actually came back that the biggest issue was the executive director of the organization. And so before we went too far with recommendations on courses, we had a conversation and said, here's what we're hearing. This is the feedback we're getting from 3 different points of view in terms of how we gather the data. And to his or her credit, they resigned. And there were no courses. I guess I knocked myself out of a lot of revenue, but we didn't design any courses because we figured out that training was not the solution. So NOP will get you there. And in fact, the team that I took with me, and this was, 500 miles away from where I was working at the time. So we had hotel rooms and all the rest of it. And we weren't there a half an hour and we figured out what was going on just by that very quick NOP.
Yeah, so those out there who are needing to do a quick analysis, an informal analysis, NOP is a really great first step. Feel free to pick Chuck's brain in the comments, ask some questions if you're not understanding some of these things that we're talking about, or you need some clarification on them, or maybe you've had some some experience with using NOP analysis. Let us know. We'd be really interested to hear. Thanks so much.